Tips from Trestle is brought to you by eMenu Choice Point of Sale, Wizox AI, and Benny Keith Foods. Welcome to Tips from Trestle, the Senior Living Food and Hospitality Podcast. This podcast explores the senior living industry with a unique focus on food, hospitality, and the community experience. I'm your host, Aaron Fish. My goal for this podcast: educate, inform, and inspire leaders in senior living. How? By bringing the resident and customer experience to the front of mind in our industry. We should bring the passionate spirit of food and hospitality to everything that we do and everyone we serve each and every day. So what are we waiting for? Let's get to it. Today on Tips from Trestle, I'm joined by Allyson Schrier. Allyson is the co-founder and president of Zinnia TV and was a caregiver for her husband with dementia, who turned that experience into a career focused on helping both people with dementia and those who care for them. Allyson, thanks for joining me today on Tips from Trestle.
It is my pleasure.
I'm so glad we connected. I've talked with your business partner, Bill, learned a lot about Zinnia TV. And when I suggested a podcast to him, he said, you can talk to me, but what you really want to do is talk to Allyson. She's the reason this all exists. She's the reason that this is such a great thing. And so I'd love to start this whole conversation by kind of telling the listeners about your personal story, like the journey you had with your husband and his dementia diagnosis, and how that steered you to where we are today.
Sure. So my husband, lovely, amazing guy, his name is Evan, and he was diagnosed in 2012 at the age of 47 with frontotemporal dementia when our kids were 12 and 15. And we, like so many families in the same boat, we had been trying for years to figure out what's going on. It's gotten a lot better, but even just those few years ago, it was really hard to get a diagnosis for a younger person because nobody expected to have dementia. And truly, it's rare, right? Fewer than 5% of people who get a dementia diagnosis are under the age of 65. But still, that's given how many people have dementia. Yeah, the things that led me to where I am now with Zinnia, of course, started with his diagnosis. I would never be doing the work that I'm doing now had I not had that personal experience. Now, that personal experience was compounded by the fact that my stepfather, several years after our diagnosis, was diagnosed with vascular dementia, and my stepmom had what was most likely Alzheimer's disease. And so while I was supporting my husband at home, I was also from a distance supporting step parents. And so I had to figure stuff out like everybody does, right? That doesn't make me unique. But I really took it very seriously, trying to figure out, like, what am I doing here? Which led me to doing a lot of reading and talking to experts. And I started taking certification classes through Teepa Snow's network. And so I would fly out to North Carolina and attend classes when I could make that happen. This was all after my husband had moved into long-term care. And I decided that maybe my career pivot, because my background's in technology and nobody wanted me, somebody who'd been a stay-at-home mom for 15 years, right, to go back into technology. What would I do? I had to do a career pivot. And I decided that my pivot would be that I would try to help other caregivers by educating them about the things I wished that I had known out of the gate, which is why I took those certification classes. I wound up then getting certified within Washington State to teach classes that are required for anybody who works in long-term care. So these are full-day dementia and mental health classes. So while I was on my own doing lectures at libraries and churches and community centers about what is dementia and how do you deal with it at home, I was working in long-term care, which led me to a job at the University of Washington, where I worked with a group called the Memory and Brain Wellness Center, which was part of the Department of Neurology. And there I helped launch and then manage an education program. But this time, instead of caregivers, professional or family, the students were primary care providers. So we were helping doctors become better equipped to detect, diagnose, and support people living with dementia. So it was my husband's dementia that was the catalyst for me to want to do all of this education that led to me being an educator.
Wow. When we first talked, you kind of told me the abbreviated version of that. But what you didn't share, or at least I don't remember you sharing, were his age, which is a year younger than I am, and the age of your children, which is exactly the same ages of my two boys. And so hearing that and just trying to imagine either being the caregiver or being the one having to be cared for and living with that at this age, it just is, for me, dumbfounding to even try and wrap my head around that. And to take what somebody could see as a negative and turn it into such a great positive and way to kind of, I guess, reinvent yourself is such a great story.
Oh, thanks. Yeah. Some other time we can talk about what is life like when somebody is 47 and has dementia. Yeah.
So when you think about getting to becoming a dementia educator, clearly there was still a little bit of that technology expert living in the back of your head, because Zinnia TV is a technology platform and it's clearly something you're passionate about. So when you think about the aha moment for Zinnia TV, what was that? And what made you think about using videos and having this full streaming service?
Yeah, sure. I remember it really clearly. When my husband moved to long-term care, he was no longer verbal. And when I would visit him, I would always struggle to find things to talk about. That is not unique to me. For family caregivers, it's often hard to figure out, like, what do you talk about with a person who is more advanced in their dementia? And so I would bring magazines, I would bring pictures. And eventually I started, I've got like a million pictures on my phone. So we would look at those pictures. And then I discovered that Apple has their memories product that allows me to actually build my own little videos. And so we would look at those videos. And so those videos are images that move along. There's music in the background. And those were pretty compelling. We couldn't watch TV together and have a conversation about what we're looking at because there is too much dialogue and video that's moving at a very fast pace. There's a plot to follow. There are characters to keep track of. So that wouldn't work. I've also noticed that when he's watching TV in the care community, that he's completely zoned out. So are most of the other residents, frankly.
Right.
And so I just started doing research. Like, I've got these couple of different things that are going on in my head. Like, wow, I like being able to show him these little videos that I'm making. I wish that I had more content on my phone. Yeah. I would love to be able to create videos about skiing or about whitewater rafting, things that had been important to him as a healthy person. So I started doing research and I discovered this paper that was called Television Viewing and People with Dementia Living in Long-Term Care by Dr. Kate DiMedeiros. And what they did during the research that they did is they showed people living with dementia a bunch of different television shows, and they tried to assess what is better or worse for people living with dementia. They looked at I Love Lucy. They looked at Bob Ross doing Payday. They watched news. And it turns out that the thing that they were able to pay the most attention to was something called Venice, which was images of Venice set to beautiful music. And I'm like, well, that's what I'm doing. I mean, like, that's what I'm building on my phone.
Right.
And so I thought, okay, so that was sort of my aha moment. You can build viewing that's better for a person with dementia. But I had this problem. I want more content on my phone so I could make more videos. And I had also started to think about, like, how do I do this at scale? How could I share my videos with other people in case they want to show them to their loved ones with dementia? So given my background in technology, I called up friends who were at Apple and I said, hey, I want to talk to somebody who knows this memories product because I have questions for them. And the person that I was put in touch with, a guy by the name of Frank Lee, had actually recently left Apple and he was kind of looking for his next gig. It turns out that he was on the design team for that memories product. Like, he knew it inside out and he knew what their goals were. He knew what their use cases were. And he had this forehead slap moment where he was like, oh my God, we never thought about the possibility of using this as a tool to build videos for people with cognitive issues. And so he was like, you know what? We can do something with this. So he lived in Vancouver. I live in Seattle. So I went to Vancouver we met with another person, Berenice Freedom, who's a visual artist and filmmaker. And the three of us talked and we were like, let's just start making videos that we think would be meaningful for people who are living with dementia. And let's see if there's a possibility of turning this into a product.
I love the path of you see something in action and then now you're working with somebody who was that catalyst to make that. When you got started into the development phase of Zinnia TV, there's obviously a lot of misconceptions about what dementia care is. Talk a little bit about some of those misconceptions that people have about dementia care and why people need to have a better understanding about these things and why they're so important.
Technology continues to drive changes in senior care, and that includes food service. eMenu Choice is an award-winning point-of-service application for managing the dining function in senior living communities. This mobile, touchscreen-enabled software enhances the dining experience for residents while streamlining processes for staff. The flexibility and functionality of eMenu Choice makes it an effective solution for any type of senior living environment, from independent and assisted living to skilled nursing facilities. It works for production kitchens or restaurant-style service with options for per meal or a la carte pricing and accommodates a variety of payments, including bill to account, meal credits, and credit cards. Created by a senior care provider with more than a century of experience serving older adults, eMenu Choice eliminates communication barriers between staff and residents while enabling person-centered choices and greater resident satisfaction. eMenu Choice, transforming dining for senior living.
Yeah, I think that there's this conception that people are sort of vacant. And that it's sort of like having a pet bird or a dog, just put on the dog channel. They'll be happy, like if you're going to watch TV, for instance. And so it's not uncommon that people are parked in front of a television because caregivers who mean well are trying to find a way to occupy them. But they don't understand that a person can't necessarily track a plot or tell fact from fiction or process rapidly moving audio and video. I did a presentation yesterday at a conference with the Michigan Assisted Living Association. There was a panel of people living with dementia, and we talked about how TV impacts them. And a number of them said, I just don't even watch TV anymore because there's too many characters. I can't keep track of them. Or I start to feel bad because I can't follow the dialogue. Or I see things that are disturbing to me. But mostly it was just about this idea of like pace and inability to focus. And so there's this other camp then, which says, well, then don't use TV at all. TV is bad for people with dementia. TV shouldn't be a part of the equation. But what we have created with Zinnia TV is a TV solution. We don't recommend that anybody parks anybody in front of a television all day long, whether it's Zinnia or anything else on the TV. If you're going to use a TV, though, it should be done with purpose and with meaning. And so I think the misconception is that there is nothing that can be purposeful or meaningful about a television for a person with dementia. And the reality is that it can be an amazing unlock, a way to reach a person who was otherwise unreachable.
I think a lot of times when we go into a dementia care neighborhood and we see the negative picture that we're painting here of a bunch of residents sitting in front of a TV and they're watching, I Love Lucy or Cops or some crazy TV show or whatever, daytime
Filipino
TV.
soap operas. That's what my husband you're watching. Yeah.
And so, that obviously caregivers are going to need to take a break and you want to make sure you're still engaging. But sometimes you also need to figure out a way where maybe it's you need to make the connection. You can't figure it out. Right. And so I'd love you to talk a little bit about the content, the types of videos that Zinnia TV uses and why that is so beneficial.
Yeah. So first of all, what is Zinnia? So Zinnia is a streaming service that is kind of like Netflix or Hulu or Amazon Prime, right? Except that the content has all been research-driven and custom curated for people who need to have an experience that is plot-free, that's a slower pace, that doesn't cause them to become afraid, that doesn't have TV commercials interrupting, that are at a higher volume and that are at a fast pace, right? Whoa. And so the way that our product works is that when one launches Zinnia, one is given an opportunity to select from a number of different channels. And inside each of those channels, one can select the video that they wish to watch. If you select a video and the video ends, the next video will start. So in some cases, people will, for instance, select the nature channel and put on Life of a Butterfly. And when Life of a Butterfly is over, Pacific Forest Walk starts. So it's just like beautiful, soothing video after soothing video. And so some people like to have that playing in the background, but not necessarily with somebody parked in front of it all day.
Yeah.
Or in some care communities, they will have something like that playing in the background. The first channel that we built was something called the interests channel. So there is a baking video, a sewing video, fly fishing, basketball, soccer, baseball, horse racing, babies. It's just like whatever it is that somebody might be interested in. And the idea with those videos is that I can sit down with a person, watch a video together, and it gives us something to talk about. It gives us a place to connect. So if I were sitting with my dad and he's really into fishing, that we can watch this video together and we can just talk about what we see. In the example yesterday when we were at this conference, we played the babies video, and one of the gentlemen there just started going on and on and on about the different scenes. He would say, "Oh, I remember when mine was that age. And oh boy, I was a pro at changing diapers." And he's going on and on. And so it's just this beautiful opportunity for people to come into themselves.
Yeah.
So that's just an example, but we have channels that are just animal videos. We have channels that are faith-based videos, people reciting prayers or singing songs. We have videos that are travel videos that are just about different places that people might have visited or want to visit. Videos that are intended to elevate the mood, like our fun and games videos. We have videos that are quizzes that will ask a question, and then very slowly there's an image that appears on the screen. A question is asked, the answers are provided, and then slowly the answers fade away so that the final answer is left there. And so anyway, there's lots of different kinds of content.
Yeah, I love the variety and the description of like the streaming services for dementia. I think it helps paint the picture of you have choices. And the thing for me, as I've been in this industry for a long time, but I find that I still every day learn more about dementia, what is important. I think we're all kind of still learning too. But the idea, and I think about this when I think about the dining aspect of working with dementia neighborhoods, reminiscence and personal connection, right? I think that's so important. Like that's how it all works. That's how we can really help those residents. And so when you think about those two things, what's the impact that that has on the content?
For over a century, Benny Keith has been a trusted leader in the food service industry. As a broadline distributor, we offer an extensive selection of products, delivering to 21 states through 10 distribution centers. We can help you create a thriving culinary culture by pairing quality products with customized solutions that elevate your residents' dining experience. Our team of registered dietitians provide unmatched customer service by modifying menus, selecting recipes, ensuring regulatory compliance, and more. Quality, value, and service are at the heart of everything we do. Benny Keith Foods puts the care back in healthcare.
Well, it has a huge impact on the content because we try to, so with that interest channel that I told you about, the intention is to have there be so much content that we will have things that spark people. So let's go to that reminiscence piece first. I'll just share two really quick anecdotes. We were extremely fortunate out of the gate before we even had our app. We had a benefactor who provided funding that was matched by the Canadian government that allowed us to do 2 years of research at the University of British Columbia in conjunction with Vancouver General Hospital. They shot a video, the researchers did, of something that they wanted us to see. And this was a gentleman who is living in the hospital, because this is a story that plays out all too often. He's been brought to the hospital because he had an episode where he was frustrated and angry and they didn't know what to do with him. And so he was dropped off at the hospital, and now the care community won't take him back. And so the family is like, where does he go? But for now, he's living in the hospital and he's not very happy about it. And so in this video, what we see is that he comes into the room where they've got Zinnia projected on a wall. And they know this guy and they know that he's crazy about cars. So they bring him to this room and you can see he's got caregivers on either side and he's angry. And Zinnia is playing on the wall and he sees the cars and he immediately softens and he goes up to the wall and he is suddenly the expert in the room. And he starts like getting professorial, telling everybody about what they're seeing on the screen. He's tapping into his expertise. So it's about more than reminiscence.
Yeah.
Yes, he's reminiscing. And it could just be that he's watching it by himself and it makes him feel good to watch TV. But it also gives people an opportunity to be normalized, right? To be a part of the conversation. And then a similar kind of story, we have these quizzes that I told you about. There's one called the American Literature Quiz. A person who does care as a volunteer in different communities reached out recently and she shared this story with me. And she said, there's this guy. He used to be a writer with the LA Times. He's nonverbal, in a wheelchair. He's invisible. Like nobody really pays attention to this guy. And she said, but I brought up this American Literature Quiz because I thought, he was a writer. He's probably into books. This might be a nice thing for him to watch. And she said, much to my and everybody else's shock, when the first question comes up and it's about a book that features the character Tom Sawyer, she said, he shouts out, The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn. And he answered every single one of the quiz questions. He shouted them out. His daughter was there, like tears coming down. And she said, so beautiful. Like this guy gets a dopamine hit. Like, look at me. I'm the guy. I'm the guy. I got them all right. And she said, but more than that, she said, Allyson, I've been going to that community for over a year and a half. And she said, and I will tell you, that was the first time that the staff saw him. Like they saw that there's somebody there. And so this is where I think that like the beauty of being able to unlock the key to somebody's consciousness, right? To be able to bring somebody back into the conversation is wow.
I love the story about the gentleman in the car because working in this field and always having that like little tiny side of he's like, what happens if that happens to me? Like, how would I ever connect with like the real world? Knowing and seeing that it's possible to connect with a profession or a passion or something that you did in the past, especially because you kind of time travel backwards as you progress, like all of that coming together, like bringing out that person really is invaluable. And the fact that you guys are able to do it with Zinnia TV in such a, what seems like a simple way is really reassuring in multiple facets for me, professionally and even personally. In the last couple of minutes here, as we wrap up, you had mentioned the research and there was some research, but I know that you guys do a ton of research to make sure that this is not just a feel good, this kind of makes sense, but more of a, no, this is really what you should be doing.
Yeah. So thank you for asking about that because I'm pretty proud of the research we're doing. So mentioned the 2 years up at UBC, and that was all very qualitative. They published 5 papers as a result of that. One, which was sort of like the key paper that really talked about the findings, which were Zinnia is great as a tool to create connection and engagement. It's great as a tool to reduce agitation. And it's great as a tool to help with activities of daily living. As a result of that research, we were invited to do follow-on research in Calgary, Canada, at a place called the Brenda Strafford Foundation, where they're doing quantitative research. So they're doing quantitative research to look at Zinnia as a tool to do 3 things. One is to reduce the use of antipsychotics. We hear this from people with wonderful regularity that rather than give her antipsychotic today, we showed her a Zinnia video and that brought her down. So we didn't need the antipsychotic. They're looking at Zinnia as a tool to reduce trips to the emergency room in long-term care. And they're also looking at Zinnia as a tool to reduce inter-resident aggression. We're doing a study right now in Massachusetts. It's through something called the Digital Health Sandbox, where this group in Massachusetts gave money to a long-term care community to conduct research where they're looking at Zinnia as a tool to bolster their enrichment programming. So they're using our quizzes, they're using our videos like as a catalyst to get activities going. And then another research project just started, and that's in Durham, North Carolina. So the Veterans Administration Hospital, in conjunction with Duke University, is looking at Zinnia as a tool to reduce delirium amongst vets who are hospitalized.
Wow. I knew you guys were doing a lot of research. I didn't know the list was that long. That's an amazing number of projects. I can only imagine what your calendar looks like because of that. But I think that for me, the impressive part is that when you list all that off, there are so many different areas that you guys are able to touch, and your impact potentially could be enormous. And simply through what started from this personal story on like, how does Allyson connect with her husband? And so to see that, I guess you could think of it as like a really bad situation turned into such a great thing for so many people it's just really amazing to hear the story kind of from stem to stern, if you will.
Thank you.
So what's next for Zinnia TV? Kind of give us the quick rundown of, other than research, what you guys have going, and maybe also share how listeners can learn more about Zinnia.
Sure. Well, we have a lot going on. We are involved in partnerships with other companies who use Zinnia's content as part of the things that they offer to their customers. The thing that I'm personally very excited about right now is that I have this idea, which is that I know a lot of people who do work in arts programs for people with dementia, where we see amazing work where people with living well with dementia who still are able to do the thing that they love, or to do something they've never done before, whether it's painting or pottery or sculpting or playing music, writing poetry. And so I want to create a video that honors the creativity of people living with dementia. So I look at it as a video that's by people with dementia, basically for people with dementia, so that we can put it together with beautiful music and have this great big long video that's like art and people playing piano. There's a group that I'm chatting with right now about possibly getting funding to be able to put that together. And then we're going to be pushing hard to try to get people who have loved ones with dementia, people who lead art programs, who would be open to allowing us to include some of their artwork in this project. So that's a big thing that I'm working on. How do people reach us? Our website, it's zinnia.tv.com. And it's Zinnia like the flower, Zinnia TV. And that's because I am a mad gardener and I love zinnias, and not just how they look, but also that they thrive even in pretty crummy conditions. So that seemed like the right flower for Zinnia. So anyway, .zinniatv.com. And right there, you can watch videos right from the website, so you can try it out and see if it's something that's interesting to you. There's also a free 2-week trial. So it's an opportunity for people to really check the whole thing out. People use it on televisions, on mobile devices. Once you sign up, you can have it on as many devices as you want.
And I think one other thing I wanted to point out, it's not just for senior living communities. People in an individual basis can get it for them and their loved ones at home.
And most of our customers right now are people who are living at home. Senior living groups use it for enrichment program. They use it for marketing, right? That they give copies of Zinnia away to people who are looking at their community, but they also use it to support family visits. When families show up, they give them an iPad with Zinnia that they could take in with them when they sit down with mom, dad, or whomever. And then, of course, to promote and support care. So, yeah.
So much opportunity with it. And that's why I was so excited to corner you for a few minutes today to be able to really dive in. So again, it's zinniatv.com. And so, Allyson, thank you so much. Looking forward to watching Zinnia continue to grow and help the industry. And hopefully we can do some work together in the future as well.
Thank you so much. It's been a really wonderful pleasure to be here with you today.
Yes. Thank you for joining me today on Tips from Trestle.
You bet.
So there it is, everybody. Another one in the books. Thanks again for tuning in. Please follow, like, and subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, or wherever you get your podcasts. And be sure to follow us on social media at Tips from Trestle. You can also learn more about the work I do by following me on LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, and even TikTok. And be sure to check out Trestle Hospitality Concepts at www.trestlehospitalityconcepts.com. I'm your host, Aaron Fish, and this has been another episode of Tips from Trestle.